It's happening. Donald Trump will sit down with none other than Joe Rogan on Friday. Trump has made the calculated gamble that this one conversation is worth canceling all other events that day, and he's probably right. Surprise, surprise, the liberal magazine, The New Republic, is slamming this much-anticipated sit-down between the former president and the host of the biggest podcast in the world. They published a headline that calls Rogan, quote, one of the worst people ever in history. Now, Rogan is laughing this off. He actually posted that article.
Joe Rogan exposes Donald Trump in his recent podcast titled The Joe Rogan Experience. And this is insane. Before the interview, the whole setup raised eyebrows because of Joe's decision not to interview Vice President Kamala Harris, and Kurtz argued that the lopsided interview opportunity proved of net benefit to Trump's campaign.
You got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. They all loved you. They were all talking about how you're you might be conservative in your financial positions, but you're very liberal socially. They were talking about you in such a favorable light. The audience was cheering. And then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
Yeah.
Joe just revealed Trump has a massive support of elites, which is a big indicator to how the election will turn out. But it seemed he was largely sympathetic to the former president.
It's up to him.
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
Trump has dodged mainstream news appearances and backed out of last minute over fears that the rigorous show would fact-check him.
I am so sorry. Here's what they wanted to do. We got so tied up, and I figured you wouldn't mind too much because we're trying to win. And I got interviewed by actually a great guy. I didn't know him too well, but I got to know him because it was the longest interview I've ever done in my life. Joe Rogan, a good guy. And it's, it's quite something, and we had some other things really important. And I said, we're going to get this stuff done. And my people came to me, sir, we could cancel our evening event. I'm sure the people wouldn't mind. I said, are you crazy? I'm not canceling. There's no way. I'm not canceling. There's no way. We never even...
Instead, Trump agreed to a chat with Rogan, who hosts one of the biggest podcasts in the country for Republican and independent men and has the potential to significantly sway undecided voters for either candidate.
Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
All right, we're rolling. Good to see you, sir.
Go.
Here we go.
In the highly anticipated interview, Joe's charm has a way of making guests pour out their heart like a drunk man.
Taking questions about lessons learned since first holding political office.
Did you have a moment in time where you realized, these are bad choices? Like, some of these people I shouldn't have had in there.
Oh, yeah. I will say that it always comes back to the same answer. The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons, or bad people, or disloyal people, or
people that were just
people
bad,
that were into the
people got bad advice.
Yeah.
Rogan says his podcast is also in talks with the Harris campaign to arrange.
Now he's got Trump missing words, and it seems Joe's bait him thinking it would lead to promotion rather than exposing him, and safe to say his stats have dipped. Let's find out about the shady deals of Donald Trump and how it would affect his presidential race.
Then they wanted to extend the contract. Mark said, you're crazy. Don't run. No. Nobody gives up prime time, they said. It's one of those little things, which is probably true.
Nobody gives up prime time, though, for being president?
For running against 20-some-odd people, it turned out to be 18 professional people, mostly politicians. they said, who would do this? I mean, it's a long shot. Actually, the heads of NBC came over, the Paul Telegny, all the top people came over to see me, try and talk me out of it, because they wanted to have me extend. The Apprentice was doing well. So it was 14 seasons. It was 12 years. We had 2 seasons where we had a double, which rarely happens. It was just a hot show. And I said, I want to do this. What happened is previously, like 3 years, 4 years before that, they did a poll. They had Mitt Romney, and somehow they put me in a poll. And I blew everybody away. I blew him away, which isn't that hard, frankly. But I blew everybody away. And I said, that's interesting, because I never really gave it that much real thought. I thought about it, but never real thought. But I saw these polls were very good. And so I was thinking about doing it then, but I had a contract with The Apprentice. Plus, I was building 2 big buildings at the time, and I wanted to make sure they got finished up properly. And it was one of those things. The kids were just sort of getting involved. They're very capable kids, but they were getting involved early on. So I did that. I got them done. I had some very good successes. And I came on, and then I thought about it for the next one after the Romney disaster. And I ran and I won against Hillary. It was quite an experience. But it was a different life because you're right, The View. I was on The View many, many times. And
Much like his rally speeches, Trump's talk with Rogan touched on a wide range of subjects on cultural and political issues.
Well, the wildest one is this idea of giving free sex change to illegal immigrants.
That's right. In detention.
That is the wildest
But
thing.
she was-
Is that the biggest problem you have?
Yeah.
You just walked here from Guatemala. You need to become
That's
a girl?
right. But she was in favor of it.
Yes.
So think of it. She changed. She changed 15 policies. In fact, I'm going to send her a MAGA cap.
She
because
stole your idea about no tax for tips.
I came up with this idea that honestly nobody ever heard of. And now it took her 2 months, but you know what? All of a sudden,
Well, it caught fire.
and she just put it into a little speech.
Yeah,
well,
it became
but I think we
popular.
have. I think we still have that issue. I think that issue is a good one for us. But no, we have a lot of good issues. We had the other day. Think of how simple some of these things are. We're trying to get cars built in the United States. Detroit has been really tough. It's been a disaster. They have a huge factory, a huge car auto plant being built by China in Mexico, make cars, sell them in the United States, put everybody out of business. Right, here we go again. I said, if that plant is there when I'm president, I will put 100 or 200% tariffs on every car. They'll be unsaleable in the United States. And they just announced they're not going to build the plant because they think I'm going to win. Think of it. They're not going to build the plant. This was the biggest plant in the world. It would have more than all of Michigan makes. That's how big. This is what we're getting to. And I said, if that plan goes up, I want them to understand if I win, I'm going to tax those cars at the rate of 100 or 200% apiece so that you won't be able to sell them in the United States. They just announced they're not going to build the plant.
Yeah, I read this.
I did a big favor for.
He repeated several anecdotes and arguments central to his presidential campaign.
I had a bad system. We had a horrible tax policy. I made it great with a much lower tax rate. So I took it from almost 40% down to 21%. Now I'm bringing it from 21 down to 15, but only if you make your product in the United States, which is great. People call me, they said, what a great idea. Nobody ever heard of that before. I don't care if they make the product in Japan. Why should I give them?
Trump revealed he has plans to lower the corporate tax rate to 15%, enact stiff tariffs foreign vehicles imported into the country. And this is where it gets more interesting. So, what does he really mean, and how would that work?
Weighted to dollars, but it actually is more dollars. We had it going, and then we just had to focus on something else. But they were sitting there, these two pollsters were sitting there, and they said, sir, if George Washington came back and Abraham Lincoln was his VP as opposed to Waltz, how bad is he, by the way? But if Abraham Lincoln was his VP, they couldn't beat you. You have got... And I'll never forget it. The following day, they said, something's happening in China, sir. Could we meet? I said, what's happening? People are dying. And it was all around the Wuhan lab, by the way. There are pictures with little lines, they're body bags, all around the Wuhan lab. And I always said that from the beginning, Joe. It was, they tried to say, first they said it was France, and they blamed everybody.
Right.
But then they say it was bats from a cave 2,000 miles away. So we got hit with that, And
Trump claimed that the U.S. has the greatest economy in history, and he attributed that to lowering taxes and cutting regulations, helping companies to grow at a significant rate.
she's politicking that we are going to raise your taxes.
Well, they want to raise the idea is you want to raise the taxes to the highest earners.
I know, but
they
it really
think that
doesn't work that way.
millionaires and billionaires are not paying their fair share.
But
She
it
wants
doesn't
them-
work that way.
Well, it's a narrative, right? And it's a narrative that appeals to people that are not doing well.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, our problems are that these rich people are not paying taxes.
Well, the problems are the rich people are going to leave, and they're going to close up their companies, and then
Right.
the other people aren't going to have jobs. That's what happens.
It does happen in other
But
countries.
the whole, because you brought it up, I'll tell you what. We just he's doing a very good job in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin. I don't know if you like him, not like him.
I don't know him.
But you don't know him, the governor of Virginia. So we have a case where they found thousands of illegal ballots. A judge just ruled that they have to be able to vote. Just happened today. Just before I walked in here, I heard a judge just ruled that you have to keep those people in.
However, Joe questioned that the counterpromise by the Democrats raising taxes is a narrative that appeals to people that are not doing well.
They're illegal votes. Now, I think they'll be overturned at the next court. One thing I found, because I had a couple of things that they get overturned a little bit, the system, because the system, you have to hope that the appellate judges are honest. Otherwise, we don't have a country anymore. It's very important. But the whole thing with illegal ballots, it's got to be looked at. You have to have voter ID, and you have to have additional ID. You have to have an ID that shows that you're a citizen of the country.
I agree.
They don't want that either.
I agree. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is the JFK files. And one of the things that you said was that if they showed you what they showed me, this was your quote, you wouldn't want people to know it either.
So I opened them up partially. I was met from good people. Good people. People that were well-meaning. Mike Pompeo was one of them.
But Trump wouldn't compromise, stating that an increase in taxes would only do one thing. The rich people are going to leave, and they're going to close up their companies, and the other people aren't going to have jobs. And that is a meltdown in the U.S. economy. He wouldn't allow that. So if there's one thing Joe exposed, Trump's is going to lower federal taxes.
We're sitting there, and they said, sir, if George Washington came back and Abraham Lincoln was his VP as opposed to Waltz, how bad is he, by the way? But if Abraham Lincoln was his VP, they couldn't beat you. And I'll never forget it, the following day.
And then Trump showed some cockiness. He couldn't hide his confidence. He went on to name some pollsters that said to him that if George Washington and Abraham Lincoln were his running VP, they couldn't beat him. And that's a very strong statement from a candidate, because the last poll after his conviction wasn't in his favor. So could there be more to his confidence, something unethical?
I'm winning the other stuff. You win, but you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office.
Isn't it
by
great?
ignoring what they're doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they say that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest.
That's what you're
That's
doing.
what you're doing to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, will you do that? Will you do that to him to them if you win? The presidency has tremendous power. I could have put crooked Hillary
I
in
respected
jail.
that you didn't, because
didn't.
what you said was it would be bad for the country.
No, I can't. I couldn't even imagine. You have, first of all, Secretary of State, but more importantly, the wife of the President of the United States of America going into jail. And if you ever saw when I'd say something about her, they'd all say, I didn't say it. I never said it.
Talking about his conviction, the Democrats are afraid Trump would put Hillary away if he emerges the winner. Certainly, Trump said he could have put crooked Hillary in jail. Joe asked if he was going to do that when he got into the office. He said he wouldn't, since he couldn't have the wife of the President of the United States of America going to jail.
Okay, I'm getting myself in trouble with some of these things, but I don't really care. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, we want to have men playing women's sports. And, I had a funny thing. At a property I own in California, I have a woman who's a very good athlete, and she works there as a manager. And Brian Urlacher, the big Chicago Bears, great player, 10-time All-Star, I guess Hall of Famer, great guy, big, strong guy. And she said, "Oh, he's one of my favorite athletes. Can I have a picture?" And I took a picture and I sent it. And I noticed she was the size of his leg. His leg was bigger than...
He talked about the borders. Nobody's ever told him that he's got to let people come into his country. This shows he is still adamant on sealing up the U.S. borders.
Good. Well, we'll do it again. I thought it was great. I think it was
great. It was a lot of fun.
You are a fascinating guy, and you've done a great job.
Thank you
I'm a
very
big
much.
fan, and thank you very much. It's been an honor. And
it's been an honor to
I'm
have you
going
on
to
as
make
well.
a great speech, and I'm going to say, and if I'm a little off tonight, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to say I spoke to this guy for 3 hours. Anyway, it's a great honor to be
Thank you, sir.
with you. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
All right.
it.
Bye, everybody.
And now it's almost 3 hours since the interview began. Trump has a campaign to be, but he gave his word he would love to be back on the interview.